And just noticing human development with the skills that I had, it's like, how can I contribute back while being location independent? I did some life coach studying. So now I'm a communication coach for parents of preteens at that specific age where they're going through their first identity breaking.
Mm.
Mr. Rogers said, if you want to help the kids, you help the parents. So this is what I do. I work with the parents in understanding this developmental stage and how they could best equip their kids.
Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to help inspire you to live your best audacious life ever. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast and taking time out of your day to be a part of our journey. Now, navigating the challenges of raising preteens is like sailing through stormy seas with the audacity to brave the waves and emerge stronger on the other side. Just in the same way a skilled captain maneuvers a ship through turbulent waters, parents must guide their preteens through the choppy seas of adolescence with patience, understanding, and resilience. Marcus Higgs is a dedicated communication coach with a passion for helping parents and preteens navigate the complexities of communication and identity during their formative years. With a background in teaching and life coaching, Marcus brings a wealth of experience and insight to the conversation. Now, in this episode, Marcus shares his expertise on effective communication strategies for parents of preteens, offering valuable insights on understanding and supporting children through their journey of self-discovery and identity formation. So now that we've got the table set, and I think this will be a very engaging conversation, one many will take interest in because we've all been there. As adults ourselves, we know what it's like, and we want to be able to guide, help our preteens as they figure out life for themselves. And so, you're gonna love this conversation. It's a great one, great insights. Marcus is fantastic. And so, without any further ado, let's check out what our conversation provided. Enjoy. Hey, Marcus, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time like this, my friend. Thank you.
Hadley, it's a pleasure, man. Yeah, meeting over a good word. Yeah, it's something I look forward to. So yeah,
Yeah, like I said, I love the opportunity I get to have these types of conversations because, well, first of all, they're positive. It can be a positive conversation, but more so the ability to impact in our own unique ways, right? And so, so on this podcast, we're talking about being your best audacious self and why that's important and what the difference it can make to others and all the things associated with that. Your work as a communication coach helping parents and preteens connect is also very, very, very powerful, particularly from the standpoint we'll get into it in terms of setting up that future for that long road, if you will. And so I'm excited to dive in it with you. So maybe as a starting point, I sort of gave away a little bit of what you do, but if you can expand further about your work and what brought you to this point.
for sure. Thank you for sharing the platform. I'm a third culture kid. My mother's from the Philippines, as I mentioned before. My dad's from the Bahamas, so I got the islands on both sides.
Nice.
Yeah, I studied communication journalism, and in university, straightway went to South Korea as a missionary English teacher, actually.
Okay.
I say my worldview expanded, and I, I I I stopped being a missionary. Didn't stop my connection with the divine and that understanding right there. Loved teaching. Got into that as a conversation coach, basically
Okay.
teaching English as a foreign language.
Yep.
Studied in got my teaching degree, and then I went taught in Middle East. Learned about Islam as a world religion. Back and forth between Chiang Mai, Thailand, and also Spain.
Okay.
Um, and then now I'm back in the Bahamas with my aging parents, taking care of them. And I worked in international schools. I worked in language institutes, and just noticing human development with the skills that I had, it's like, how can I contribute back while being location independent? I did some life coach studying. So now I'm a communication coach for parents of preteens at that specific age where they're going through their first identity breaking.
Mm.
Mr. Rogers said, if you want to help the kids, you help the parents. So this is what I do. I work with the parents in understanding this developmental stage and how they could best equip their kids.
Well, certainly well traveled. Let's start there first and foremost, which is very cool. And I think what's really good about that is the different perspectives and insights and cultures you're exposed to, and how that feeds into you. I don't know if you sort of talk about that and maybe how that's helped you today in your work.
Yeah. You know, when you start to, so in my line of work, being a conversation teacher, I would have to empathize or try to look into this person's head while they're struggling to piece together the words. So I'm trying to understand them and make meaning of it. And I'm doing this in many different cultural settings. There's a lot of it's like what you said actually before the call. There's that intersection of where we're overlapping and we
Mhm.
get to see these many different perspectives. That said, there's a through line of humanity. It's just like there's a common point where all of us meet, where it's
Right.
just like the work I do, it's human development,
Yes.
and it does transcend culture. Culture is your identity, collective
Abs-
identity. People like
Yep.
us do things like this.
Hmm.
Then there's also there's humanity of you start to notice the patterns of how people develop and then how
Absolutely.
relationships develop. And I think I come at it with so in my line of work, I also say it's BYOB. It's
Okay.
bring your own beliefs.
Okay.
In that I believe in higher forces, greater powers, but regardless of what you believe, like let's
Mhm.
align with that, let's in tune with that to understand how we can connect and so on. So yeah, that is an aspect that I like to lean into, the
Yeah.
diversity of it
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just think from a in order to do the
from a
work
Canadian. Yeah.
that you're yeah, there you go, right? In order to do the work that you do, connection is such a key aspect. And what better way of connecting with you is having an understanding of perspectives and cultures and values and ideals and all these things to help build those connections. I think it's a fabulous bridge between who you are and the work that you do, for sure. That's great.
Yeah. Well,
uh
one
Go
one
ahead.
thing we say in this is if you look at human development, right, even at with mitosis in a cell, it separates to then come back together and to integrate.
Right.
And that's what we do as people in our communities. Our kids are dependent, they're independent, and then we reach interdependence.
Got you.
And that's what we do as members of society. It is for me to I do see your color, I do see your height, I do see your nationality
Yes.
in a sense, and it's
Yes.
all beautiful.
Yes.
And then I promise to be fully me to serve you, if you
Mhm.
be fully you to serve me. And that's where we
Mhm.
connect.
I love it. I love it. So, hearing in the work you've done and obviously the place you've gone to, you call yourself a communications coach, but you could virtually be anything you want to be. You call yourself anything. Why land on communication specifically?
The quality of your communication is directly related to the quality of your life.
Okay.
And that is your ability to speak with others and
Yes.
understand them. And
Yes.
that's your ability to talk to yourself and understand yourself.
Mm. Mm.
Um, there are four things they say are the soft skills for the 21st century. But
Okay.
if you're good at communicating,
Yes.
collaborating, being creative, and then critical thinking. Doesn't
Mm.
matter what AI is, doesn't matter what anything that comes. If you have these four skills, you can make a contribution to society and you can meet the needs of others, which is how you meet your needs. And communication, I just love communications. I love words. That's my book, Words of
Yeah.
Well-being, Inspire Life Through Words of Well-being. Yeah.
I very much appreciate the commitment to communication, because I'm with you wholeheartedly. I sort of look at, so when I started taking analysis of my life, um, I think my communication skills are what got me here, hands down.
Hey,
Like that has been my bread and butter through everything. Like they've gotten me into trouble, they've gotten me out of trouble, but like they've been there for me throughout. And a key aspect is sort of just my success overall. But the again, your commitment to ensuring that our words are heeded and we pay attention to them is fantastic. And I particularly love the point you made about the conversations with ourselves, the internal conversations. I wonder if you can
yeah.
talk about that significance, please.
We are the stories we tell ourselves.
Oh man.
And really in a word, that's identity. All behavior comes from identity.
Yes.
So then again, the question is, what stories are you telling yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What desires do you hold? Because all characters are moving towards something.
Yes.
And then understanding your character's strengths or character traits that are helping moving you towards that, understanding who you're collaborating with, collaborating with.
Yes.
And it's all the story, you know? We're on our different paths and you find people who are in alignment with the same things that you want. And there's a final thing I say on that. When Steve Jobs said, when you look back, the dots connect themselves.
Absolutely.
When you find that coherent through line, that's when like life, like you said, life is good, you know, when you get to wake up and do what you want, but you have to know what you want. Um, yeah.
I often refer to that line, that through line, as that red thread, right? That common theme, and it's life sometimes doesn't make sense living it forward, but when you stop and look back, you can actually, as Steve Jobs said, you can see where all those dots connect, and you kind of see where that red thread. And you realize that, hey, I had to go here in order to get there to be where I am right now. And in the moment, it may not have made sense, but I was still doing it anyways because I just trusted in that instance that, like, this is where I needed to be. And you do that and you're like, okay, now I'm here. Right. And so I think there's an appreciation of your experiences as part of the entire journey, as opposed to that one pit stop, if you will. Right.
Or those several pit stops.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
so then let's get into specifically why you made preteens the area that you wanted to focus on.
Sure. When I was a fifth grade teacher, so I taught English language arts for grade 12 and grade 9. So that's
Okay.
why I love stories, I love language, love narrative, and so on.
Okay.
Then a friend went on maternity leave and I had to teach her fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the good vibe book they gave me. It's like their own Pinterest wall of quotes and whatnot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Pictures of ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's filled with a whole bunch of stick
Yeah.
figures with afros, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to stay in the game long enough that I could have an effect on them. Now, have effect with them and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why this age is so particular is because everything that eventually grows must first break.
Yes.
And the breaking is not the problem. It's what story do you tell yourself after the breaking, right? Um, when kids are moving from dependent into interdependence, or sorry,
Yep.
independence, that's necessary. It's part of human development, and they're trying to make sense of it. One of the biggest challenges now of that age is being with the parents to frame the conversation. And
Right.
what do I mean by that? Um, Oftentimes when something is going wrong, kids look to themselves and say, "What's wrong with me?"
Right. Right.
Oftentimes,
Yep.
parents frame it as, "Oh, it's just hormonal," or the kid's feelings aren't validated, or this is a stage where you can actually implant a very empowering identity and story in them to
Mm-hmm.
send them on a totally different trajectory.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to work with parents in that regard. That's why this particular age, because in every life transition, you're constantly asked, "Who are you?" And the way
Mm-hmm.
you answer, you show up is going to dictate how you travel and navigate through life. But if you get them at that first breaking, that's
Yes.
where you can lay the groundwork. It's called the formative years, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I mean, as a parent myself, I totally can understand and relate, because we have the opportunity in those formative years that you described to I don't like the term planting seeds because it sounds
Mhm.
it's not like a covert hidden thing, but in terms of
Mhm.
being able to instill, I guess, really instilling the values at a young age and being able to understand, and that part to me I think is critical, because a couple times you talk about seeing stories, the stories that we tell ourselves. The important part of these stories is where we see ourselves in that story, right? That's key. Like,
Mhm.
are we the protagonist, the antagonist? Are we the victor or the loser? Like, all these things are extremely important, because if we see ourselves as the victor in the stories in our heads, that's how we'll see ourselves in life.
Yep. Let me step back
Yeah.
one point where you're saying Oh man, I forget it right now, but that's all right. I'll leave it, I'll leave it for there.
It'll come
Oh,
back.
you were talking about planting seeds or
Yes,
instilling, right?
yes,
So
yes.
the etymology or the root of the word parent or educate means to bring forth.
Mm,
And in a sense, beauty is already there. We create the context or the environment for it to come forth. That's one way of looking at it, right?
mm,
The universe is ever expanding, right? Are we pulling it at the edges or is it pushing up from the middle? The answer is
right.
yes. We
Mm,
just create the context for it to flourish.
yeah.
The second thing is, um, oh man, what was the second point that we just ended on?
So
That
where we fit in the story?
where we fit in the story. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in a story, there are three things that we need.
Yeah.
You need the author. That is like the director if we're looking at a film. It's the one who directs the attention of, hey, look here or look here, right?
Yes.
Then you need the audience. The audience is the one who makes the meaning. The author says, directs the attention. The audience is making the meaning of what they're looking at. And then you need the actors on stage, the ones who are actually doing things, they have desires and they're moving it around.
Yes.
Now, the beautiful thing about life is this is wisdom speaking. When you realize you are the author, the audience, and the actors all the same,
Mm,
you start writing your own story.
mm. Well, and what you're doing is you're empowering yourself, right?
Hey, yeah,
You're taking that pen and saying, "Let me take you on my journey," as opposed to being that person where life always happens to them and things have just
yeah,
and I can't control it. Well, we do have control more than we realize, and that's, I mean,
yeah.
I think an excellent way of giving ourselves that control.
And then you realize you're collaborating with other people who throw their own mix into your story. And hey, there's every good story has conflict. I mean, that's what
So
makes a
good.
good story a
That's
story.
it. That's it.
But what
That's it.
defines it is how the character meets the conflict. But yeah.
Got you. Got you. Okay. So let's kind of get into the nitty gritty of how you actually help parents and what it is you actually do. I'm not necessarily saying give away all your secrets here, but I mean, give us an idea of
No,
what
no, no,
that,
I can.
what does that process look like here?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, with all the information out there, there's information, but you need implementation.
Yes.
So I am a life coach, but I work specifically in this regard, and I'm working with the parent in something that's highly relevant to them,
Okay.
right? So the kid is going through what I call they're setting up a wall of ice,
Okay.
right? They're distancing themselves by they have their identity breaking. C is they have their collaborative mistrust. They don't know who to trust at this age. And
Uh,
let me explain that. Um, as a parent, your word has been gospel up until now. It's all black and white. Like
yep.
your worldview is their worldview. And then they start to get an understanding of other perspectives of the world.
Okay.
That's where they get skepticism. Like nuance doesn't set in until about 18, but they're
Hmm.
skeptical of just like, well, what you're telling me is not necessarily true. But us as parents, we know, hey, we're speaking our truth as we understand it from our perspective, and we do want to pass that on. But again, kids don't get that. Um, mind you, they're seeking out peers, they're seeking out other trustworthy present adults in their lives. They're going seeking out to form their own identity. Um, that's why they trust their peers who are going through the same thing.
Mm.
Unfortunately, now they're forming their identity behind the screens with social media.
Yes. Yes.
They're not forming it here. We'll get to the answer of that. These are the challenges. So I is identity breaking, C is collaborative mistrust, and E is emotional management. Emotions, the highs are high and the lows are low. And
Yes.
again, developmentally, this is what biology is doing by saying, I want you to test all these things. There is risk, but there's also healthy risk. And it's by saying, yeah, go out there and their reward sensors or their dopamine, the dump that gets there, it
Yep.
is heightened. And it's because they're trying to figure out, okay, who am I? What is this? And they're excited to go try this world.
Mm.
Now, the unfortunate thing is when they don't feel supported or validated in this experience, that's when they're just like, hey, you don't understand me. And if you don't understand me, like you're messing up my vibe right now,
Right. Right.
really.
Right. 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 Right.
So those are all the challenges. We answer that challenge with the show up framework.
Okay.
And very quickly, show up is start with a strong identity,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's speaking to their virtues and values
Yep.
that are with them. And virtues and values, virtues are the 24 virtues in action.
So sorry, Marcus, just to confirm, the identity that they already have, not the one that they're developing.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, all of us already have identity. It's
Yes. Yep.
bringing our awareness to it,
To
right?
it. Yes. Yes. Yep.
Um, what virtues are, they are the characteristic traits. There are 24 of them, and these are in all religions, all cultures, all science, um, that are working towards well-being for the collective or well-being for yourself,
Yeah.
such as creativity, leadership, perseverance, right? And there are five that are with your character, uniquely to your character, and there are five that are unique to my character, but all of
Gotcha.
them are there.
Mm-hmm.
Values are things that are important to you,
Yes.
right? Could be family, could be finances, could be your faith, like, and that's what uniquely makes you you. We also look at family culture. Again, culture is people like us do things like this, which
Yes.
is collective identity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So start with a strong identity. H is hold space for collaboration.
Okay.
Like we said, when kids are going through stressors or challenges, they think, what's wrong with me?
Right.
But their strategies, it's called autonomous
Um.
support. You're helping them move into their independence. So
Yes.
you're inviting them into the conversation. You're talking about expectations and rules and regulations that they then contribute to, and then you look at the problem together and say, "You're not the problem, man. Let's do this together."
Mm.
And you support them in answering it. Open up communication. Again, there are different strategies and tactics by which you can open up communication at this age. And then W is wonder and explore this world together. That
Mm.
is project-based learning or project-based living. It means doing something hard for a long period of time, and it's giving you something to discuss with your kid. Like for you, it could be this podcast. For
Sure.
them, it could be a sport they're trying to practice or something. And what you're doing is you're using the concepts of personal development, but then giving it a platform on something they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do those SHOW, you unveil your potential.
Yeah.
So that's the framework I work with.
I mean, first of all, I'm an acronyms guy as well too, so I love your use of words. I think back to my own, my own parenting. I've got an 18-year-old son, and so how I try and show him how I do show him the world is how I live it. And so he knows I do a podcast with Audacity. He knows that I'm talking about living your best life. But it's also my way of showing him how this is how you can move through the world. And I don't know how personal I'm getting here, but I love pedicures. I enjoy them. Like they are
You're
like
all good, man. Yeah.
I don't know what it means to other people, but it means a whole lot to me. It's relaxation, it's comfort, it's all these kinds of things. And every so often, if I go do a nice pedicure, I'll snap a pic and put it on social media and said, "Hey, I love it, life, and things are good." And he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, Dad, the other day I had like 5 of my friends who follow you, saw you post, this your pedicure online and stuff, and they all came to me like, why is he doing that?" And my son was like, "That's just what my dad does, right?" And so,
Hey.
but within that response, right, that says to me that he recognizes, yeah, it's okay to be your own individual, unique self, right? And you can do this through your
Yeah.
actions. And so when you bring it back to the show up framework, that's how I show up for him, right? And that's what he recognizes. And and I'm certainly, so it's certainly the way you've broken that down in that fashion, because the certainly communication pieces there, as you talked about, that was one of the 4 C's. The collaboration absolutely there as well too. But the piece that I think really opens up for me, and it's my perspective looking at it, first look at this, it really opens up the world in so many beautiful ways, is that wonder piece, right? The
Hey.
exploration, that curiosity, right? I think when you go into a situation, you can maintain your level of curiosity. The possibilities are endless. And so when we're teaching our young people to be curious about things, right, and question
Mhm.
everything, why not? Like that it just says the potential, I guess, is where I go to. It does all sorts of great things. And so I wanted to share that
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, man. And the whole idea also is you're approaching all of that with your identity,
Yeah.
right? With your virtues and values. It's like this is who I am. And when you're curious about it, you are gonna question yourself. I remember a kid asked me one time, he said, I asked him something, and he said, "Why do you doubt me?" And I thought about it and I said, I'm not doubting you. Like I'm asking a question out of curiosity. And then and then I thought, what is the difference between curiosity and doubt? And doubt is like, I don't know, and I'm upset that I don't know,
Hmm.
and I'm looking down on myself. Curiosity is, I don't know. I acknowledge that I don't know, and I'm anticipating what the answer is. Like if I
Mm.
get to know it or not. Um, yeah, so we need that curiosity, and I think that comes from a strong sense of identity. It's like, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm able to explore this, and I'll be okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when we talk about identity, I think what works hand in hand with that very much so is self-esteem, and we know how important self-esteem is for young people. As you said, this is the formative years. We know how important that is. That sort of sets the table and set the stage for everything else. How do you work with parents to help build a self-esteem in their children?
Sure. Um, so remember, where attention goes, energy flows.
Okay.
It's bringing their kids' awareness to who they are. If and who they are in a positive sense, and then giving them evidence and examples for that while still helping them move towards what they want. Kids want to understand themselves.
Yes.
Everybody wants to understand themselves,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Know
Yes.
thyself and you'll understand the secrets of gods and men. Um, in understanding yourself, you want somebody who can help you make sense of the thoughts in your head with no judgment and
Mm.
walk with you through your thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what counseling is. That's what psychologists do. But the first line of it is in the home with the person you trust most.
Hmm.
Like your parents have an influence on you from an early age. So you said, how do you help parents do that? Um, Bringing the parents' awareness to their kids' awesomeness,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
and then communicating that to them, even when they're out of your presence. One thing we do is we have a letter writing exercise,
Okay.
right? That's speaking to, hey, this is what I noticed. So the parent gets to own it by saying, this is what I noticed about you, this, and this. Each
Mm.
kid is different, so different things will
Yes.
resonate. And then
Yes.
at the bottom of the letter, we say, if ever you're going through something and you want to come to me, bring back this letter and I'll listen for 5 minutes or 10 minutes without interruption. And what you're doing is you're implanting them by saying you are supported when you're ready and when you need support, and I'll actively listen to you. You're safe to express yourself
Yes.
without fear of threat, and all your emotions are acceptable. Not all behaviors are acceptable, and they are going to test boundaries. Like, well, I'm saying all of this not with that Instagram glow of it's all perfect, butterflies and
Sure. No.
cherries and
Yeah. Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And actually, like I said, everything that eventually grows must first break. Like when you understand these developmental years, things are breaking. But that's why I
Right.
work with the parent to be integrated themselves, to be a trustworthy, present, trustworthy parent, so that you
Hmm.
keep your stuff together while other things are falling apart.
Right.
That's the work I do.
Yeah. Are I guess generally when parents come to you, I'm curious about the stage that they're at. I mean, oftentimes I'd imagine like people. So oftentimes, when people come looking for assistance or help, things are already pretty not in a great place. And ideally, I mean, and imagine from your perspective, you'd want to see them before that, where you can do some preemptive and things in advance. So when you run into these obstacles or challenges, you can respond to them. But I would imagine they're not most of your clients, that's not where you're seeing them. Can you sort of describe where things are at when they say, hey, Marcus, I need your help?
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing, right? If you're going to put a product out there, you want a
Yep.
product that answers a problem, right? And most people, their problem with preteens is that they're yelling at each other. There's already the relationship breakdown in a sense or something.
Yes.
That's why I am working with the preteen years. And the problem that I'm actually answering is the mental health issue that eventually comes later on. A stitch in time saves nine.
Yes.
And the problem I say I'm answering is if you understand my train of thought, if you instill these things at this age, it'll mitigate a lot of the stress. It won't answer all of it because I mean that stress actually is part of the growth. That
Yes. Yes.
agitation actually
Yes.
contributes to it.
That's right.
But you can go through it together with a nice um attachment of trust, of letting them go away to know that they can come back, to go away, to come back, because eventually the final form is interdependence. So you're absolutely right. The book that I'm writing now is called The Show Up Framework: How to Nurture Your Preteen's Potential. And it does speak to, as the title says, nurturing your preteen's potential, feeding into that. So
Yes.
even if my clientele is very small, I am looking for beta custom. I'm running a beta group for July
Hmm.
at the publishing of this, but but even if it is small, I'm looking for people who see the potential inside their kids and want to cultivate that. Even if it's small, like I'm okay with that. I'll work with a few people
Sure. Sure.
because we're working in the internet age, and then I'll find the people who want to cultivate that.
I'd love to touch on quickly the advent of sort of technology, and you sort of touched on earlier with social media, and sort of how our children now show up through social media. But even just beyond that, I mean, as of late, AI has had a huge, massive wave in terms of its heightened usage and growth, and social media. uh, these things I would imagine present interesting wrinkles into the typical parenting dynamic, if you will. What is it that you're seeing with technology and raising our
I
kids today?
I love how you said interesting wrinkle.
Yes.
In 2012, there was an uptick of mental health issues. That's reported. And the reason is, and I did mention it before, with the advent of so many screens,
Hmm.
kids are now forming their identity in the likes or inside the groups online. And
Yes.
actually with YouTubers, when they say that's how this is the age when kids are looking for peers or people who understand them. And that's actually how channels present themselves of, hey, you're a friend, you're a part of this group.
Yes. Yes.
When I just want your attention to hawk off this stuff to you, right? And also, when the screen closes, the question is, who am I?
Yes. That's right.
If if I've not developed what's inside here before developing what's on the screen, and who am I when all of this shuts down? Now, mind
Right.
you, I'm not a person who's angry at technology. Technology only speeds up the flow of consciousness, and
Mhm.
you can have good conversations on technology. Let me make it more practical for your audience of who have preteens. Ideally,
Mhm.
you would keep the kid off of social media
Right.
till after their brain has gone through that identity forming. So about 16 years. There's a book or a site, Screenagers, that speaks
Okay.
specifically about screens and teenagers. I highly
Okay.
recommend.
Yeah.
Um, Especially for girls. Girls are very relationship based,
Yes.
and in social media, that's what we're noticing because they'll attack you with your relationships with other people,
Yes.
with all the gossip and so on. Um, Guys like to do things together. That's how we bond in activities. So
Mhm.
ideally, again, we're putting down our phones, we're getting out in nature with our kids and so
Sure.
on. It is the challenge of this time. Um, I think when you realize there are rooms of people who are highly paid to hijack your attention, it's not necessarily your fault, but it is your
Right.
responsibility to be aware of it.
Mhm.
And there are answers for it. There are tactics by which to to lessen the blow of social
Right.
media.
Right, right,
L-
right, right,
l-
right, right.
l- Last thing I'll say on that, just like when
Yeah.
we said we are the stories we tell ourselves,
Uh-huh.
it's just a constant stream of stories that you don't get to process. And when you have all of that in there that's unprocessed, that contributes to the gunk and muck that builds up.
Got you. Got you. No, no, I hear that loud and clear, and I get you. I think you're absolutely correct. It's uh, being aware, having that awareness and being mindful of what's happening around us and to us, because it is very intentional. Um, uh, I'm certain there's a bunch of different strategies that parents can take, but I think, um, and I'll get your take on this, but I think the most important thing that parents can do is maintain that open line of communication. That has to be the starting point from my perspective, I imagine, because without that, again, how am I connecting with you? How am I reaching you? How am I understanding you? So it's not just me. I need to get back from something as you as well. How am I, getting a take on, like, getting your take on the world or your viewpoint on things? Like that line of communication has to be there. Um, and so I guess that's where the conundrum is because I'd imagine you have parents who have difficulty communicating with their preteens. So how do we build that with them?
Sure, 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 sure. Um, you know, as primates, we raise our kids in pods or in
Mhm.
groups. And this is how we run businesses. That's why they're called corporations. Corporation means body. Um, the reason I say that is it takes a village to support a parent also. Where you're lacking in a skill, there can be another parent or adult, trustworthy adult, who pulls up the slack in that. And that could be, ideally, it is your aunts, uncles, coaches, teachers, because you're right. You may lack the skills, or there may be an emotional tie that you're learning how to develop this. You want to get as good as you can,
Right.
but even as a business owner or even as a person who's a part of a collaborative team, you know there are other people who specialize in it. You have the greatest influence. You set the
Yes.
vision as the leader, but it might be an auntie who can connect with them because they feel there's less judgment there or so on. So while you are, again, responsible for it, the one who actually does the doing could be another person, and you have conference with that person. So that's another strategy. You're right. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Community is key. All these comms, it means togetherness. Because as you have a robust set of people who are together,
Yep.
that's how you that's how you manage something that's dysregulated. And this kid's going through dysregulation again by design because
Hmm.
they're figuring out who they are.
Yeah. 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 Marcus, I absolutely love the mission. I love the mission. I love the work you're doing. I love the impact that you're having. And then the support to parent, I think, is also really, really important. And I'd imagine it was through your work as an educator that you realize that this is where you can have the biggest impact. Because what you're targeting a very unique group for sure. There's no question about that. And so I think it's some fabulous stuff. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here and sharing here on the Audacious Living podcast. And really, what we're doing is we talked off the top about that we're setting up our children for success for that long road. We're not just saying where they are right now, because where they are right now is temporary. We all know this, right? Like,
Hey,
when we all were there at a preteen at one point in time, we didn't stay there, right? Like, absolutely not. I used to have a really busted up afro back in the day, and I'm so glad I left that behind. But we've now, and I've got no hair now, but that's another story. But we've now moved ahead, and life continues. Really is a point, and it's what we do now to set up our children for long term success. For our listeners that wanted to connect with you or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
hey, marcushiggs.com. Um, I'm in the developmental stage. I'm running through some workshops this summer,
Okay,
so you can reach out to me there. LinkedIn is where I am. I'm not so much on other social media platforms, but you'll find me in LinkedIn, uh, posting there.
very
So
cool.
yeah,
We'll make sure to be to include those contact details in the show notes as well for our listeners. Marcus, again, thank you for this. This has been awesome. Congratulations on all the great work, my friend, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
hey, thank you for sharing your platform.
Very cool. Take care. Back we are on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Marcus for being here. I think the work that you're doing with young people is extremely important and valuable because you're helping to build a foundation. And yes, I did have a busted up afro back in the day. I know in our conversation with Marcus, we explore the crucial role of communication in building strong relationship with preteens and empowering them to navigate the challenges of adolescence with both confidence and resilience. To connect with Marcus directly and learn more about the services that he offers, the contact details are always in the show notes below for this episode. I encourage you to reach out to him. Marcus is currently offering personalized communication coaching sessions for parents looking to enhance their connection with their preteens. And I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to strengthen family bonds through effective communications. And we know how important communication is and can be to our families. Thank you for tuning in to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode with Marcus and found insights valuable, his valuable insights, please like, follow, subscribe, or share, because that's what helps us reach even more listeners as we continue to grow on this audacious journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Stay audacious, and until next time, be safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.